stuff. First of all, Mark, just tell us a wee bit about what you were doing before COVID, before all this kind of kicked off.
Well, before COVID and whatnot, I've basically been a self-employed entertainer, DJ, karaoke host, quiz host for probably about 15 years. And probably the last 2 years has been my busiest. Resident DJ in 2 nightclubs, one in Ayr and one in East Kilbride. Playing there on Fridays and Saturday nights. Also working with 2 other DJ agencies, providing karaoke nights and quiz nights. So in the lead up to the original lockdown in March, I was pretty much out 5 or 6 nights a week. Yeah, it was only a few hours a night, but to me, it equated to a full-time job salary, more than, and it allowed me daytime to go to college. I had always had a day job, a 9 to 5, which I ended up giving up about a year and a half ago, managing an office. I gave it up in sort of May 2019 to focus purely on going to college, becoming a mature student, learning something new, and I knew I was financially stable with doing enough nights in the pubs and clubs.
Brilliant. Obviously, COVID hit. Everything got pretty much shut down, kind of very quickly, especially like for yourselves. I was working in hospitality at the time as well. It was pretty much one night it was you were working and the next you weren't, so to speak. Just from a personal aspect, what for you, I know I got furloughed because I was technically employed by a company, but for you being self-employed, what was in place by the government, and what's your thoughts on it? How did it help, or how did it not help?
At the beginning, nothing. Nothing was in place. I think it was a few months until the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, SEISS, came into play. And luckily, because I do keep my tax return up to date every year, because I do keep a record of things and I'm on top of it, I did qualify for it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in the same industry, DJs and whatnot, maybe doing private parties and getting paid cash, that maybe don't always declare things, and they're not up to date with their tax return, and now are entitled to nothing. I do challenge you to find any self-employed person whose tax return is 100% accurate. So although I have calculated that I've lost a hell of a lot of money this year, the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme has not been even close to what I would have earned. It's got me by, but it's not been what I would have hoped for.
I think obviously yourself, what you're saying, what you would have hoped for compared to what you were doing 5-6 nights a week is you're obviously you'll know yourself, you're not the only one out doing that, so it would have been there would have been so many people in that boat, which is I suppose hard for the government to keep up with, but then again it's not you guys' fault. But
the whole industry has suffered from hospitality, people working within the hospitality sector, people like myself. I would say I was a self-employed sort of subcontractor in the hospitality sector, so working within different hospitality venues. It's difficult.
Oh no, definitely. I 100% agree with you. Especially coming up to now, like Christmas. That's I would imagine one of, if not the busiest time of year for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Funny you should say that. On Facebook just the other day, flashed up one of my memories from 1 year ago, and it was my list of December gigs last year.
Yeah.
Now, the month of December, 31 days, I had 32 gigs. So there was some days I was going from one to the other.
Yeah, doublers.
I think I actually had 5 or 6 days off as well.
Right.
So I think within those 32 gigs, 4 or 5 of them was like 2 a day.
Yeah.
Like maybe doing a quiz night and then going to the nightclub and doing separate things. So it was a busy month. Made an absolute fortune, I'm not going to lie.
Aye.
Fantastic month.
Yeah, you have to. You have to in the lead up to Christmas, mate.
But then when I look to the self-employed income support scheme level 3, just came out on the 30th of November there.
Yeah.
And it has dropped again. I think it's only 60% of your average 3-month earning. I walked away with about £1,000 from them, and that I would imagine last December I made about 4 or 5 times that.
Yeah, so obviously not.
It's such a contrast.
Such a draw, and I suppose everybody is having to deal with it. But when you're, especially in the lead up to Christmas, like such a long month, really, yeah. because of the time of year, obviously coming up to Christmas, presents, whatever. But it's such a long month going into January, especially when, as you said, you're a we'll use the term mature student loosely, because I use that with myself as well. But with being a student, as you said, you gave up the full-time job life, so it's it's your main source of income, like, and when you're making that much one year, and
it's just one of these unprecedented things that no one really could predict or foresee happening. I mean, if I hadn't given up my full-time office job, I was working in an office 9 to 5. Yeah, would have maybe been shut for the start of lockdown, as it may have not have been deemed an essential. But going forward, it would have opened back up, and I would have had that bit of security with furlough, with it being with a company, as opposed to just the self-employed. So I guess it was a risk I took a year and a half ago, not knowing that this was going to happen.
That's the thing, though. You couldn't. You've not got a crystal ball. I think Andy with a crystal ball would have been able to predict that. So, that kind of leads me on to another question then, with regards to the rethink, retrain, reskill image was branded about. That was for something previous. It wasn't specifically to do with COVID. But what did you think when that was getting branded about? What, for someone who's took that conscious decision to give up the full-time job and follow what would be your dream job, or one of them, what did you think when that was kind of the forefront?
If you want me to be brutally honest, nothing short of absolutely insulting.
Yeah.
Insulting to so many people across the whole entertainment, hospitality, so many different sectors. Quite a few people, kind of high-standing people, have spoke out about it.
Yep.
One I'll use that, and I watched an interview with, is the DJ and actor Goldie.
Right, yeah.
He'd done quite a big interview about it because of the industry he works in with acting and with DJing. He'd done a sort of spoof where he was mopping the floor and that way of retrained as a cleaner, because you're going to need cleaners, sort of thing. He's won BAFTAs, he's won loads of awards, he's won loads of critical acclaim, and now he's effectively being told by the government, rethink, retrain, do something else. You even think of people that have went to dance school. I'll say London, for example, the London School of Dance and ballet, a ballet dancer who spends 7 years there, who starts working on Broadway or the West End of London and whatnot, and now they're told, not go do something else, go and work in a supermarket. It's insulting to people's dreams and talents and basically their livelihoods.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree. I don't see the problem with getting another job, but to tell somebody to completely reskill, I do agree. That would come across as insulting. Like, to me, like, obviously a lot of friends with professional wrestling who do it or did it full time.
Absolutely.
And to think about someone who's trained for it for 15 years of their life to just go out and go, nah, like, I'm going to have to completely reskill and not try and follow this. It would be completely insulting. With regards to just now on the tiered front, what's your views on that? Obviously, some places can have your bars open, some places can't. Obviously, unfortunately, entertainment's not allowed really in any of them.
I don't particularly agree with it. Okay. I don't particularly agree with the tier system. I was actually sitting looking at it yesterday because there's talk of, well, I'm in South Ayrshire, so we're in tier 4.
Yeah.
There's talk of us coming out of that this week, which is great. But you look at the difference between tier 2 and tier 3. The only difference is that in tier 2 you can have a drink without having a meal. In tier 3 you need to have a meal. that is the main difference. The social distancing aspect's still there. The 6 people from 2 households is still there. The meeting indoors is still not allowed as such. There's not a massive change within these groups, and it feels to me like the main aspect of the tier changes are directly relating to the hospitality sector, directly relating to people being able to go into pubs or bars or restaurants, people being able to go even into the tourism and entertainment industry. So football stadiums and sporting events are not allowed crowds yet. I know certainly up north, and I think it was Dingwall the other day, one of the games, and there was X amount, I think 300 fans or something were allowed in, but that's because the Highlands are in tier 1 and they've been allowed a small amount. I don't think the whole thing has been handled well from the get-go, if I'm being brutally honest. Had it been handled better in March, or even earlier, even February, when things started creeping through, to nip it in the bud, I personally believe, had it been handled properly, things would have been back to more normality by the summer of this year. And it has now rumbled on almost 10 months. And it is affecting not only people's jobs and livelihoods, but people's mental health.
I completely agree with you. It is a massive factor is mental health. It was a massive factor going into this before. It was there was a massive spotlight on it. Even more so now, the fact that we spent, was it from March until July it was, in our house, like 4 walls, like you could go out for a walk. That was pretty much how you were treated. And granted, I completely agree with the fact that it could have been handled better. I actually personally thought that at the start, for example, Nicola Sturgeon was handling it well compared to down south. But for me now, sometimes it just feels like she's waiting a week and making the same decision as they are down south at times. So I can completely agree with the fact that it could have been handled a lot better, like across the board.
Absolutely. You only need to look at China, for example, now, who are pretty much open 100%, no lockdowns, no restrictions, no vaccine, and no cases. So how have they done that? How is that possible? And how do the UK still have so many cases? On the grand scheme of it, you look at a globe, the UK is a tiny, tiny little island. Tiny population compared to the rest of the world. And I think we're currently the 3rd most affected nation in the whole of the world. It shows that there's been serious problems in managing it.
Oh, definitely, especially when you look at another island like New Zealand and how they've approached it. They're the poster child, I suppose, for
absolutely. And a lot of people thought their ways were quite brutal. completely lock the place down, but that's what was needed. You are an island. You can contain.
Yep.
If the borders had been closed from word go for all travellers in and out, if it was a mass lockdown, personally, I was in the shielding category.
Yep.
So I did have to stay religiously home for the first 3 months. I was getting food parcels delivered to me. That went on for 3 months. It then went on for another 2 months if I wanted it.
Okay.
There's 5 months worth of that. If they had just implemented something like that to everyone, every single person, you must stay home for a month. Incubation period is 1 to 2 weeks. And then the actual period of time you've got it is 1 to 2 weeks or until, unfortunately, death.
Yep.
Within 1 full month of the whole country not mixing, unless it was hospital, food parcels to everybody, enough to get by. You think of the rations back in World War II, people got by. It could have been completely eliminated from our whole island within 4 weeks, in my opinion. But the infrastructure shutdown would have been too much.
Oh, I think so as well. I think it would have been too much.
Then you look at them now.
1 month's a little bit optimistic, right enough.
Optimistic, but again, if there's not a single person entering or exiting the country, then there's no way for the virus to travel. Which was my feeling behind it. Yeah. But again, you think of all the money they've put into furlough, all the money they've put into businesses and self-employed and whatnot. That's now going to rumble on for 12 months. They've said that furlough's been extended to March next year, etc. If they had done that, yes, it's a massive task. But if they just paid every person in the whole UK a set 1 month salary, we could have potentially get back to normal. It could have potentially saved the economy billions of pounds as well, and it could have saved so many businesses from going.
Yeah, well, you make a valid point there. It's not exactly a cheap task to keep everyone bubble for 60% of their wage every month. So it's one of those ones. It's hindsight is a wonderful thing, and
absolutely,
unfortunately, the way we dealt with it hasn't worked the way that it was hoped to have worked. Kind of moving on from that into, I suppose, what you were discussing, furlough's going on until March. What do you think the kind of is going to happen? What this is just kind of a wee look forward, or a bit of optimism, I suppose. What's your views for the start of 2021? What do you think could happen?
Optimistically?
Yep.
Optimistically, I would like to hope that now that the UK have sourced the vaccine and they appear to be happy with the clinical trials that have happened with it, and that they do roll that out, I really hope that the UK government and the Scottish government will both look at that as a positive. I know there's a lot of people saying, I won't be taking a vaccine, I won't be taking it. Right. I think that's up to them. That is absolutely fine. If someone who has had a vaccine is scared of someone that hasn't, then surely they don't think the vaccine that they have had would have worked.
As well, yeah.
So as long as the people, the vulnerable people and the people who want a vaccine are being vaccinated, there is no reason normality cannot start to gradually come back. That's my optimistic look at it. My realistic look is that after Christmas and New Year, we will probably go back into one of these firebreak lockdowns because families and friends have mixed over Christmas and New Year. And I do believe that will then make things rumble on again a bit longer. Me, from a personal point of view, do I see myself working in a pub or a nightclub before next summer? No. I don't see it happening. I'd love to.
Yeah.
If they rolled out the vaccine within the next month and said, right, just go on with it, fantastic. We can all get on with our lives again. Will people die? Yes, inevitably. People die every day anyway. they've got a difficult job. They've got a difficult job to manage everything. I could sit here from a selfish point of view and say, no, I want back to work, don't care about anyone else. Realistically, we need to look after the vulnerable. We need to look after those that matter. The NHS have done a tremendous job. I've got friends who work in the NHS. They have been supportive and very supporting of the whole nation. The last thing we want is them to be completely overrun with people. So we can't open up everything just like that back in a winner. It does need to be gradual. My fear is that it's going to be too graduated, and we could be sitting here in 6 months' time with some form of restrictions still in place.
Still having the same discussion of when they're going to open pubs and nightclubs. Mm-hmm. Perfect. That is pretty much all the information that I'm needing. Have you got any last words for the people who are going to be listening to this?
My only last words would be that when places do open back up, although I had said earlier on that the past couple of years have been my busiest with DJing and whatnot, pubs and clubs are not as busy as they used to be. There has been such a culture change with maybe getting a carry out and sitting in the house with friends and having a house party with friends. And again, all the hospitality places being locked down and being shut has still encouraged folk to do that within lockdown.
Yeah.
Once we are open back up, get out there, give to the small businesses, give to the small independent pubs, not the big chains. Give to your independent local nightclub, your local restaurant, your local bar, and get the people who have suffered financially over the past year back into a better place.